father taught me that. Today we're doing something a little bit different. We're having a look at some of the fun toys that we get to play with here on the channel. We've got Mark Golden here from Northside Marine. Mark, thanks very much for bringing the boat out so that we can have a look at the two boats together. This episode is more about looking at the two Stabicraft Frontier models, the 1450 and the 1550. Mark, can you give us a little bit of an insight as to why people might consider one boat over the other?
Yeah, no worries. Well, they first brought out the 1450 Frontier, and this was a hugely successful model for the Stabicraft brand, but we continuously got asked for some of the better features, some additional fuel storage and things like that. So they worked on a previously older model, a 1550 Frontier, and they brought this out with many of the features of the 1450, but just with a whole heap of upgrades. So the ability for an electric anchor winch, larger console, better seating options. There's just a long list of things. Underfloor fuel tank, but there's a lot of reasons why people might want to jump up from the very popular 1450 into the larger 1550 Frontier.
We're going to take the boat out now and we're going to give you some honest feedback and some insight into our experiences, both of these boats out in the bay. We'll see you out there. Okay, today we're in the 1550 and a quick shout out to Mark and Jason at Northside Marine. They've certainly helped us out a lot and provided a lot of advice for us in regards to the boats that we've been using. Some of the key differences, I guess, is the size. I know a foot difference or 30 centimetres difference doesn't seem a lot when you're talking about measurements, but the biggest difference that we find is the actual volume of the boat. The 1550 has the higher gunnels, and it definitely does feel like you're starting to move into an actual boat rather than a tinny. We've spent a reasonable amount of time out in the bay in both the 1450 and the 1550, and I have to say we had a lot of fun adventures in the 1450 and went a lot further than I guess many other people would go in a boat that size. Stabicraft have a reputation for having a very stable platform. And it doesn't matter if you've got one or three people, most of the time you can get over the same side of the boat, and the pontoons that are around the boat are going to support you and not tip you as much. One of the other features that we do love about the 1550 is right here. The bait station, and we've also got a nice dry tackle storage area. Pretty much dry storage under here for all your tackle. Even when we're hosing the boat down, we don't find that much water gets into there. And having something to hang on to when it gets a bit rough, it also gives you a couple of extra rod holders, which is great. The 1450's bait board is basically a plastic board that's added to the side of the boat. It does get in the way, however it is very effective and it works well. I think if we were going to be cooking on the boat here, we'd probably put one of those in as well. But we do love this station here, and it's definitely something that contributed to our decision to scale up from the 1450 to the 1550. One of the next features that we love the most about the 1550 is right under here. Electric anchor winch makes all the difference. Many years of pulling up anchor rope from 50, 60 metres. Not too bad when you're young, but once you start to get a little bit older, it's definitely nice to have somebody else or something else do the extra work for us. It also does make it a lot easier to get exactly on the spot that you want to be on. And also pulling into the beach like we're pulling into Tangalooma, we can use the motor and the electric anchor to pull us into the beach so that we get off and it's not too deep. When we were fitting this boat out, we found that the boat had a few more features that it made it a lot easier to run cables under each side of the gunnel. There's like a little cable rack that you can run your cables in. Lots of fixtures for cable ties to keep them from the cables moving around. And we did find it easy to separate the cables, particularly when we're looking at transducers. We don't like the fact that we don't want to run the power cable's too close to our transducer cable as well. We do get a nice out of the Ray Marine element sounder that we have here. We got a pretty consistent signal in anywhere up to about 40 metres, travelling at 45, 46 kilometres an hour, which is about 23 knots. And we are able to sound the bottom all the way through. So it does work very well in those scenarios. When we were fitting out the 1450, it kind of reminded me of some of the smaller tinnies and that we've had that we fitted out. Similar things, it was hard to hide the cables. There wasn't enough room to put the sounder, so we had to top mount that, which meant that the sounder wasn't as protected as what it is when you look at it in the dash here. The one downside is that we have had to run a GPS antenna. We do find that the aluminium blocks that signal a fair bit, so that's something that you definitely would need to consider and allow for when you do your fit out. The other consideration we have is the capability of the motor that you can have on the two boats is a little bit different. The 1450 has a maximum horsepower of 50 horsepower, where the 1550 has a maximum horsepower of 75. Because we're always coming back with a full esky of fish, of course we need that extra power. Helps us get us back. Yeah, now, at least now you know what I sound like when I'm lying. But it does make a little bit of difference, particularly when you have more people. And you can carry one more person in the 1550 compared to what you can in the 1450. That's if you have enough friends to take with you anyway. We put on electric motor. We have no affiliations. This is just the one that we chose. Long story short, get one. They're brilliant. Easy to set up. We installed it ourselves. Makes fishing a whole lot easier. We haven't noticed a very big difference in the fuel economy between the 1450 and the 1550. 1450, we're sort of around that 3 to 3.1 kilometres per litre, where in the 1550 we are going faster, we're travelling heavier, but we're about 2.8, 2.9. When you're travelling with the tide and the wind's behind you, we do manage to get sort of up around that 3, but you know, that is pushing it, I guess, in the conditions. But how we travel, sort of 2.8 to 2.9 kilometres per litre, which isn't too bad going. On an average trip around the bay, we're spending about $50–60 in fuel. Regarding the towing and the launching of the boat, there's really not much difference. Yes, it's a bit easier to move the 1450 around in the water because it's not quite so heavy, but we drive on and drive off the trailer, so it doesn't really make a lot of difference. And I'm towing the boat with a mid-size four-wheel drive. You really don't notice either of boats behind you. Okay, the next thing we need to talk about is the ride quality. We moved to the 1450 up from a smaller, I think it was about 3.95 little tinny that we were using just around the passage, and we got out into the bay a little bit with it. But I tell you what, when it blew up, it was a very wet and uncomfortable boat, especially for the passenger. The 1450 was a massive step up from that tinny. It was a lot smoother, it was a lot drier and a lot more comfortable, and it meant that we could go significantly further, even though it wasn't a much bigger boat. That then levels up again with the 1550. The weight in this means that you can cut through the waves a little bit more. It is drier, it has higher sides, and it does affect the time that it takes us to get across from Cabbage Tree Creek, from where we go, all the way across to Moreton Island. So it's probably taken about 15 or 20 minutes off the trip, even in the roughest conditions. And we see a difference in the top speed. Well, our cruising speed, I guess, in the 1550 is about 40, 42 kilometres an hour, which is sort of around that 20, 22 knots, where the cruising speed in the 1450 was sort of more around that 30, 35 kilometres an hour, which was sort of dropping down a little bit, down to that 17 or 18 knots. Do you need to always get there faster? No. Does it help when you can? Yeah, it does. Like, it is one of the considerations that we had in making the decision to step up to this boat. So I guess, come to the crunch, what's my final verdict? The 1450 is a cracker of a boat. It really, I guess, it comes down to your money. There's a reasonable difference between the price. It's hard to justify sometimes because, particularly on paper and particularly on the website, it doesn't seem like you're getting much more of a boat. There are a lot of features that go into that price difference as well. It's just not that it's a slightly bigger boat. I think it's about $30,000 difference in price, which I guess the size of the boat will be determined by your budget. But if you have got the extra money to spend and you are looking for a very safe, secure boat that's going to take you just about anywhere you want to go, Geez, it's hard to say that you shouldn't be looking at the 1550.